Hello YouTube, this is Frugal and this is not the Frooglesim news for today, Sunday, May the 8th, because I haven't got a news for you show for you this week. I've just been a little bit too busy. It actually takes about 3 hours to pull everything together, all the press releases, and yes, to answer the ongoing questions that I keep on getting, yes! The news show is just reading press releases. There's very rarely me giving much more than what the publishers tell me. I simply don't have the time or the money to go and buy everything that releases each week and give you a full review in a 5-minute show. But anyway, there just wasn't enough time this week to pull everything together. However, you've already noticed that this video doesn't end right now. There are some stories that I received and I will cover them next week, but I do want to, in this show this week, give you some kinda news that I think you're going to be excited about. Stuff that's kind of going on behind the scenes here at Frugal Towers that you're about to see very, very soon. First up, Dovetail Flight School. Dovetail actually sent out Dovetail Flight School an alpha build to YouTubers and the media this week, and I did record a first impressions video. In fact, you're watching it right now. I cannot, however, put that video live, and that was my decision. Now, I gotta give Dovetail a bit of kudos here. I've been banging on them a little bit about how they've not been too open, not been letting people see the actual sim, playing things very, very close to their chest. And I've got to admit that I was in error, and I thought that they were selecting YouTubers and media outlets to look at their product because they were unnaturally friendly, I guess is one way of putting it, towards the product. That's not the case. As I said, I did record this first impressions video, and I decided not to put it live. I did reach out to Dovetail and explain why, and the reasons why are, first of all, I had problems prior to filming, and those of you who follow me on Facebook already know that. Then I was working with Dovetail to get the problems that I had prior to filming fixed, and I understand from Dovetail, they were very receptive in fact. They jumped on Skype with me, one of their developers, jumped on Skype with me and worked through a number of the problems, and I understand they now actually have them fixed. So I had problems prior to filming. I had problems during filming as well, in that the flight model is not final. In fact, it's not final to the point of being awful. Controller support is not final. In fact, controller support is not final to the point of being completely unflyably awful, and performance is not final, which is not unusual. It's an alpha, and optimization of frame rates and things tends to come very late in a beta. So my general takeaway from recording the video you're watching is that if I were to put this video live, it would give an extremely unfair impression of the product. Now, it is an alpha, so that means it's some way off completion, and I did say in this video that you're watching that it is an alpha and we can't judge it, and we certainly cannot imply that the final product is going to be anything like what we're seeing right now, good or bad, because it's an alpha. But even so, I know many people won't hear that, and all they'll see are the bad things. So I reached out to Dovetail and I said to them, these are my impressions, and I think it would be detrimental to your brand for me to put the video live. And they actually said to me that they agreed with me on most of the points that I raised to them, and that they were actually happy for me to put the video live, which I thought was incredibly open and honest and not actually at all what I was expecting. So kudos to Dovetail, but regardless, I'm not going to put the video live. Dovetail have said that they have fixed nearly everything that I raised in my concerns to them. They are going to be issuing a new build to all the testers soon. I will re-record the video and put it up at that point. With all that said and done though, I do have some impressions for you from my time with Dovetail's Flight School. First of all, the similarities with FSX abound in that it actually uses the same config files. So there is a folder in app data, which I think is called FSC, Flight School, Dovetail Flight School, and it actually has the same config files that we do in FSX. In fact, it also still uses SimConnect, just like FSX and Prepared do, which, you know, I don't know, I haven't tried, but I guess that means it shouldn't be too much of a stretch when the final sim comes out, not Flight School. Bear in mind, Flight School is Flight School, it is not the final sim, but it does imply somewhat that when the final sim comes out, perhaps developers who have experience producing add-ons that interface with FSX using SimConnect will be able to migrate their tools over to work with Dovetail Flight Simulator. I'm thinking in particular things like Active Sky Next. Also has the same graphical style in many areas. It has been polished quite a bit compared to FSX and Prepared. For example, higher definition models, better scenery out of the box, part of that being due to Dovetail's partnership with OrbX. But overall, it's very easy to look at this thing running and go, that's FSX. you can certainly see the family similarities there, which answers a lot of questions. They kept on saying based on Microsoft Flight Simulator technology, and now I've actually seen how based on it, and it's pretty darn based on, although they have overhauled the rendering engine, the performance, the memory management. It's a 64-bit app, of course. It is using hardware to its full, which is a wonderful thing. Also, of course, Dovetail Flight School has a flight school focus, and it's designed for new pilots. What that means is that there are a limited number of aircraft that you can mess with, a fairly limited and small set of missions and lessons that you can work through, and that content is probably going to run out pretty quickly for most people who are not new pilots. But again, this is not the new big sim. This is not Dovetail Flight Simulator. However, Dovetail Flight School does have elements of Dovetail Flight Simulator in it. For example, the graphics, obviously, and the way it's using hardware, but also there is a free flight mode that provides access to all of the world's airports, and you can fly anywhere and do anything, even in Dovetail Flight School. So hopefully I get that new build of the product this week. And if I do, then I will re-record this first impressions, and I will put it live with my commentary and give you a very unbiased and no holds barred look at it. Now, bear in mind, as I said, it's still going to be an alpha or a beta. We can't draw too many judgments, but I do have some opinions forming already. Some good, some not so good. Next up, the A2A Texan launched quite some time ago, and I did say I was going to make a video on it. In fact, I wanted to have a review up by now. Part of that is what you're watching right now. The challenge with challenge with A2A's Texan, Frooglesim Texan, is it's probably the most subtly intricate aircraft ever made by A2A. Every time I fly this aircraft, I learn something new. For example, stalls and spins are incredibly detailed. Different stall characteristics based on how the aircraft is configured. Very, very subtle and very, very deep and detailed. Highly accurate flight model for aerobatics. A completely nuts and detailed engine simulation, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I don't know whether this is placebo, it's a new aircraft, and I'm just reading in, wow, this is more complex than anything I've seen from A2A before, or not. If they do have some new technology in there in AccuSim for the engine modeling and how complex that engine is, and the complexity of failures and interaction with fluids and temperatures and all sorts of other wonderful gubbins, I do hope that that's maybe in an update translatable to something like the B-17, which is my all-time favorite aircraft. Also had some huge challenges with this aircraft in certain kinds of approaches, crosswind approaches in particular, and significantly different characteristics trying to land a three-point landing, with all three wheels on the ground, versus a main gear only landing, which is considerably easier. So what I've decided is I'm not going to do a single review video of this aircraft. It wouldn't do justice, I think, to the aircraft, and it wouldn't let those of you who are interested in this kind of beast really dig deep into what it can do and what it doesn't do. So instead, after the Tapini tour is finished, I'm going to do a short series looking at the Texan instead. So we'll actually do a series flying from A to B and really try it out. Haven't planned on where that's going to be yet, but even so, that's the plan. Finally, the other big release that I've not covered, the IXEG 737 Classic. Now again, I recorded the first impressions video actually last week. It's not what you're looking at right now. I recorded the footage you're looking at right now just now in order to get you something on this video. But I did actually record the first impressions last week, and like a complete muppet, I didn't record any sounds. So I decided I'm not going to put that live. I'm going to have to do the video again before I put it live. Hopefully I can get to that this week, and alongside the Tapini tour and everything else that I'm working on. Incidentally, there were a lot of coverage out there in the media and on YouTube of problems with the IXEG 737 at launch. Almost all the problems, though, and I said this in comments to people on my own videos and on Twitter and Facebook, almost all the problems at launch were actually not the aircraft in itself. They were actually interactions with the aircraft and other X-Plane add-ons, notably XP UIPC. Even so, the developers really stepped up in spectacular form, and in the short time that this aircraft's been available now, they've issued no less than 3 patches fixing the majority of the serious issues, including these weird interactions with third-party add-ons, but also adding in various things that were not actually planned for this aircraft at release. And it is, without doubt, in my opinion at this point, the single most complex study aircraft available for X-Plane. So I'm eager to get that first impressions up and then start doing even possibly, who knows, some fully loaded X-Plane videos. A few of you pointed out I can look at something, I think it was called oh my gosh, I can't remember. EFAS, I think. Somebody pointed out that there is an EFIS-like tool. I normally use Avlosoft EFB. There is an EFB-like tool available for X-Plane, EFAS. I think it's called EFAS. which I could use for Fully Loaded, so I'm investigating that as well. So content is on its way, and I hope that explains to you why you haven't seen Texan videos, why you haven't seen 737 Classic videos, and what's going on with Dovetail Flight School. It's actually very exciting. So, as I said, no news this week. My apologies. I simply suck at time management. Next week will be an even bigger show, and I will, of course, cover the items that I did have listed for this week, as well as the ones that come up next week. In the meantime, as always, thank you so very much for watching. My name is Frugal, and I'll see you all very soon.